You're like a block of ice that never thaws. There's no love left between us. On our wedding anniversary, my wife sobbed as she threw her accusations at me, demanding a divorce and half of my assets. But she had no idea that I had already died once. I died on a late, exhausted night, right after I'd finished paying off the last of her brother's $185,000 gambling debt. It was only after death that I saw the truth. She had been cheating on me with my best friend for a long time. They were already planning how to use my life insurance payout to move into the dream home I'd spent my life building. When I opened my eyes again, facing that tear-streaked face full of disappointment, I only felt a cold, biting irony. Fina, we could divorce. I agree. I slammed the bank statements and the loan recordings onto the table. A total of $185,000. Pay me back first, then we could talk about love. You want to use marriage to siphon my assets? You want to leave me penniless so you can run off with your true love? In this new life, my heart is cold, but my head is clear. This time, I'm going to make sure every traitor and parasite knows that my money comes with interest. It can make you rich, but it can also leave you with nothing. The air in the room was eerily quiet. The red wine was still decanting on the table, and the steaks were still sizzling in the pan. Sloane's face was still wet with tears, but her expression had frozen. She probably expected me to drop to my knees like a dog and beg her to stay, just like I did in my last life. Back then, I treated her like a goddess. I worked day and night, taking on every project possible just to support her family of leeches. While I was hospitalized with a bleeding ulcer, she didn't even call. The day I was discharged was today, our anniversary. The surprise she had waiting for me was a divorce settlement. Her reason was high-minded, irreconcilable differences, and a lack of passion. What a joke. I looked at her, my gaze steady. I reached into the drawer and pulled out a stack of pre-printed billing statements. Why'd you stop crying? I pushed the papers toward her, tapping them with my finger. Since you want to settle the emotional score, let's settle the financial one first. Sloane snapped out of her shock, her face flushing with rage. Caleb, what is wrong with you? I'm here, heartbroken, and you're talking to me about money? She grabbed the papers, ready to tear them up. I caught her wrist. I didn't use much force, but it was enough to keep her still. Don't bother. I have backups. I let go and leaned back in my chair, my voice calm. 3 years ago, your brother Kyle put a guy in the ER. The $25,000 settlement? My credit card. 2 years ago, your dad got scammed by some health supplement pyramid scheme. I filled that $40,000 hole. Last year, you said you wanted to open a boutique. The shop went under, and I paid off the $60,000 you owed suppliers. Sloane's face went from red to a sickly pale. We're married. My money is your money, and yours is mine, she shouted back, full of righteous indignation. Typical parasite logic. In my last life, I was brainwashed by that logic. I thought being a man meant carrying the burden for everyone. It ended with me dead and my family destroyed. I tapped my phone screen, pulling up a few screenshots. Marital assets are for living, not for filling the bottomless pit of your family's failures. And last month, Kyle lost his shirt in Atlantic City. He called you crying in the middle of the night to save his life. That's $60,000 you Venmo'd him? That was the down payment for our new house. All told, it's $185,000. I looked her straight in the eye. Sloane, since you're the one who diverted those funds, you're paying it back before we talk divorce. And I'm charging interest. Sloane stood up, so fast her chair screeched against the hardwood floor. You're crazy, Caleb. Are you trying to kill me? If you keep this up, I won't divorce you. We'll see who can hold out longer. She started throwing a tantrum, slamming her wine glass onto the floor. Shards of glass flew everywhere, and the red wine pooled like blood. In the past, I would have rushed to comfort her, terrified she'd cut herself. Now I just found her noisy. That's fine too, I said, slowly tucking the bills away. I'll just file a fraud report against Kyle, and I'll make a little trip to your office. I'm sure your boss would love to hear how project manager Sloane Miller is using her husband's money to support her side piece. Sloane's pupils shrank. What are you talking about? What side piece? She was panicking. In my last life, she had kept her affair with Justin Harris a total secret. I didn't find out until the moment before I died. Those two had been together for years. Justin had even been the one who set Kyle up to lose that money in Atlantic City. Those two vultures had picked me clean and were ready to step over my corpse to move up in the world. I stood up, taking a step toward her. Don't think I don't know why you're in such a rush to divorce. Justin's new condo is finished, isn't it? Just waiting for the new lady of the house to move in. Sloane backed away, hitting the sideboard. A vase wobbled on the edge. You're lying, she stammered, fumbling for her phone. I'm calling Justin. You've lost your mind. You're slandering me. I made a go-ahead gesture. Call him. I'd love to catch up with him myself. As I watched her frantically dial, the rage I'd carried across 2 lifetimes finally found a vent. This was just the beginning. I was getting every cent of that $185,000 back. And maybe I'd take a piece of their lives to settle the rest. The call was answered almost instantly. Sloan put it on speaker, her voice thick with fake tears. Justin, come over here right now. Caleb has gone crazy. He's threatening me. He's saying horrible things about us. I heard the screech of tires over the phone. Apparently, Justin was already nearby. Had they already picked out the place to celebrate the divorce? Less than 10 minutes later, the doorbell was being pounded like a drum. I walked over and opened it. Justin rushed in, sweating and looking like a man on a mission of justice. Caleb, we can talk this out. What kind of man bullies a woman? He stepped in front of Sloan immediately, playing the knight in shining armor, protecting a damsel in distress. Sloan hid behind him, sobbing even harder. He wants all the money he spent on my family back, Justin. With interest. It's over $100,000. He's trying to ruin us. Justin blinked, then frowned, turning to me. Caleb, man, this isn't like you. He reached out to put a hand on my shoulder, but I stepped aside. His hand hung in the air for a second before he pulled it back, looking awkward. We've been brothers for years. Sloan's been with you for 3 years. Even if the spark is gone, shouldn't we end things with some dignity? Bringing money into it just ruins the memories. The same old scripts. He'd used the exact same words on me in my last life. Be a man, be generous, don't sweat the small stuff with a woman. And then, behind my back, he'd laughed about what a sucker I was. I looked at his hypocritical face and felt a surge of nausea. Ruins the memories? I let out a cold laugh. Even real brothers settle their debts. Besides, where are we exactly? And it's not exactly a small amount of money. Justin sighed, looking disappointed in me. Caleb, I get it. You're hurt, but your career is taking off. This money isn't a big deal to you. Sloan's a woman. Where is she supposed to get nearly $200,000? If you're short on cash, I've got a little saved up. I can loan you some to get you through. He was setting a trap. He wanted me to feel embarrassed to ask for the money, using friendship to take me hostage. In the past, I would have taken the out just to avoid the confrontation. But now, sure, I nodded. Both Justin and Sloan froze, surprised I'd agreed so easily. A glint of triumph flashed in Justin's eyes. See? That's my man. We're brothers. Since you're so eager to help, I cut him off, pulling out my phone and bringing up my Venmo QR code. Why don't you pay off Sloan's $185,000 debt right now? Venmo or Zelle. The air froze again. Justin's smile turned into a grimace that looked more like he was crying. Caleb, you're joking, right? 200 grand? I don't have that kind of cash sitting around. Didn't you say Sloan was like a sister to you? You won't help her with this little bit. I pressured him, stepping closer. And what about the time Kyle lost that money at your poker game? You told me you'd cover him and let him pay you back slowly. How did that end up coming out of my pocket? Justin's face went pale, his eyes darting around. Sloan looked up at him sharply. What game? You said you'd cover it. That was the trigger. When Kyle lost that money, Justin had promised to help, but then he manipulated me into covering the emergency. He played the hero to Sloan, telling her I was the one refusing to help and that he'd had to beg me to pay it. He was playing both sides. I watched Justin's face drain of color and delivered the final blow. Stop the act, Justin. Over the last 3 years, you've taken quite a few kickbacks from me under the guise of setting up projects, haven't you? Add in all those small loans you never paid back, and we're looking at another 30 or 40,000. Since we're settling accounts today, let's clear it all up with interest. Justin was fully panicking now. Caleb, don't you dare lie. Those were legitimate business expenses you gave me. Business expenses? I pulled a digital voice recorder out of my pocket. It was the first thing I prepared when I woke up. In my last life, I had a habit of recording important business meetings. I'd accidentally caught a few private conversations with Justin back then, too. I hit play. After some static, Justin's drunken voice filled the room. Don't worry, Caleb. This is just a loan. I'll pay you back double when the deal closes. Sloan doesn't know a thing about business. Just tell her it's for work. The voice was crystal clear. Sloan's face went white as a sheet, staring at Justin in disbelief. You lied to me? You told me you begged Caleb to help my brother. Justin was speechless, sweat pouring down his face. Sloan, baby, listen. I was drunk. I was just talking nonsense. Nonsense my ass. I clicked off the recorder and shoved the QR code in his face. Either pay her debt right now, or this recording goes to your boss and the company Slack. Take your pick. Justin grit his teeth, glaring at me with pure venom. Caleb, you're really going to be this cold-blooded? Cold-blooded. I laughed, the most genuine laugh I'd had in years. Compared to what you two have done, I'm an amateur. I'm giving you 3 days. If the money isn't in my account by then, the lawsuit will be on your doorstep. I walked to the door and pulled it wide open. Now, get out. The door hadn't been closed for 5 minutes before my phone started vibrating like crazy. I didn't even have to look to know that Sloan had called in the reinforcements. Sure enough, shouting echoed in the hallway shortly after. Before I could even sit down, the door was being hammered. "Caleb, you ungrateful prick. Open this door right now." That trademark screech belonged to my wonderful mother-in-law, Martha Vance. I calmly opened the door. A small army was standing there. Martha, my father-in-law Richard, and the deadbeat brother Kyle. The whole gang was here. Sloan was hiding behind them, her eyes red and puffy from her recent report. The moment Martha saw me, she threw her grocery bag on the floor, not caring if the eggs shattered. She plopped down right on my welcome mat and started wailing. "Oh Lord, my life is so hard. I gave my daughter to this snake, he used us, lived off us, and now he's stabbing us in the back. $200,000. You're trying to kill this whole family." The motion sensor lights in the hallway flickered on and off with her screaming. Neighbors were peeking out, whispering. Richard, looking solemn with his hands behind his back, walked in with the air of a patriarch. "Caleb, haven't you had enough?" he said. "Couples fight. It's natural. Why bring money into it? It's vulgar. Tear up that agreement right now, apologize to Sloan, and we can put this behind us." He spoke as if he were doing me a favor. Kyle was even worse, chewing gum and leaning his muddy sneaker against my designer leather sofa. "Yeah, man, look at yourself. You're lucky my sister stayed with you this long. So what if she spent some of your money? You make plenty. What's wrong with sharing with family? We're all one big family. Why be so stingy?" Looking at their ugly, entitled faces, I realized that in my last life, I must have been blind. I'd given my heart and soul to these people. I ignored Martha's wailing and Richard's lecture. I walked straight to Kyle and kicked his leg off my sofa. "Ow!" Kyle wasn't expecting it and face-planted onto the floor. "Caleb, you hit me." He scrambled up, ready to swing. I looked him in the eye, my gaze icy. "This is my house. This sofa cost $6,000. You break it, you pay for it." Kyle flinched, intimidated by the look in my eyes. He didn't move. Richard's face turned purple with rage. "You've gone too far. You're hitting your brother-in-law now? Caleb, I see you really don't want this marriage to work." "I really don't," I said, looking at each of them. "Since you're all here, let me make this clear. That $185,000 isn't just Sloan's debt. It's yours too. I paid Kyle's gambling debts. I covered Dad's scam. I paid Mom's hospital bills." Their faces darkened with every sentence. Before, I was a son-in-law, so I took it. But now that we're divorcing, the tab is open. Martha scrambled up from the floor, pointing a finger at my nose. "You animal. You gave that money freely. You can't ask for it back." "Exactly. Do you have a promissory note?" "Without a note, it's a gift." Kyle yelled, thinking he'd found a loophole. Legally illiterate, I muttered. I took out my phone and connected it to the living room's Bluetooth speakers. "I figured you'd try to skip the bill." I tapped the screen. Kyle's voice, sobbing and begging, filled the room. "Caleb, please. Save me. These guys are gonna break my hands. I'll pay you back every cent of this 50 grand, I swear. I'll sign anything." Then Martha's voice. "My dear son-in-law, please help Kyle. I'll get down on my knees. We'll sell the house if we have to. We'll pay you back." The recording was deafening. The three of them turned the color of raw liver. Kyle's legs were actually shaking. When did you record that?" "The day you begged me for the money," I said, my eyes sharp as scalpels. "I didn't make you sign a note then because I was soft, but a recording plus the bank transfer records is more than enough for a judge to see a loan agreement. Now, what do you have to say?" Martha was silenced, her lips trembling. Richard pointed a shaking finger at Sloan. "This is the man you married? The man who wants to send his own parents to jail?" Sloan just covered her face and cried, unable to look at me. I walked to the door and threw it wide. "I said my piece. 3 days. If the money isn't there, I'll see you in court. Now, take your trash and get out." I pointed at the grocery bag and then at Kyle. Martha tried to start another scene, but I shut her down with a single look. One more word, and I called the police for trespassing. The family shuffled out, leaning on each other. Kyle gave me a hateful look over his shoulder, muttering curses. I didn't care. I shut the door, and the world was finally quiet. But I knew this was just the calm before the storm. This family would do anything for money, and I was ready to tear them out by the roots. After the vultures left, I didn't waste a second. Time is money, especially when dealing with lowlifes. The next morning, I had a locksmith over to replace the smart locks with high-security deadbolts. I wiped Sloan's fingerprints and passcodes from the system. Looking at the new locks, I felt a sense of peace. This house was my premarital asset, The deed was in my name only. In my last life, I'd added her name for security. This time, she wasn't getting a square inch of it. Next stop, the bank. Sloan and I had a joint account where most of my salary went, the family fund, which was really her personal ATM. I showed my ID and marriage certificate, froze the account, and reported all secondary cards lost. While the teller was working, I saw the balance, less than $8,000. I remember depositing a $30,000 bonus last month. I checked the history. Sure enough, last night, the night before she asked for the divorce, there was a $25,000 transfer. Receiver, Justin Harris. Memo, renovation costs. The blood rushed my head. My fists clenched so hard my knuckles popped. She took my money to renovate the house she was going to live in with her lover? Did she think I was already dead? I took a deep breath, pushing down the urge to do something violent. I printed the statement and tucked it into my briefcase. More evidence. Final stop, the sales office. We had put down a $40,000 deposit on a luxury condo overlooking the river. It was Sloan's dream house, supposedly for the kids' future schooling. Now I knew it was meant for her and Justin. I found a sales manager and dropped the contract on his desk. I'm canceling the purchase. The manager was stunned. Mr. Miller, this unit is highly coveted, and you'll lose a chunk of that deposit. Cancel it. I'll take the hit on the penalty, I said firmly. A $40,000 deposit meant a 20% penalty per the contract, but I didn't care. It was worth it just to spite her. Besides, buying that house would have been an endless nightmare. Once the paperwork was done, I took a photo of the cancellation agreement and texted it to Sloan. Message: the house is gone. Your dream life just hit a dead end. My phone exploded in less than a minute. Sloan's voice was so shrill it sounded like nails on a chalkboard. Caleb, you bastard. How dare you cancel a house? I spent 6 months picking that out. That was my life's work. I held the phone away from my ear. Your life's work? I paid for it. My name is on the contract. I do what I want with it. Also, tell Justin to get ready to pay back that $25,000 renovation fee. Otherwise, I'm suing him for theft of marital assets. Sloan screamed into the phone. You're heartless. You're going to hell. Believe what you want, I said and hung up, blocking her number. Just as I put the phone down, another call came in. It was my sister, Maya. In my last life, she was the only one who told me I was spoiling Sloan too much. I'd told her to mind her own business and even fought with her over it. In my previous life, Maya was the only one who cried at my funeral, only to be insulted by the Vance family. When I answered, my voice softened. Hey, Maya. Caleb, you finally woke up. Maya's voice was so excited it was shaking. I just saw a post on Facebook from Justin Harris talking trash about you, and I knew it. I knew you finally dumped that leech. You're my hero, bro. I should have bought fireworks to celebrate. Hearing her voice, my eyes stung. At least in this life, I could protect her. Forget the fireworks. Come over for dinner tonight. I'm making your favorite pot roast. I'm there. And listen, I'm interning at a law firm now, and I know some absolute sharks who specialize in high-asset divorces. If you need someone, I'll get them on the phone right now. Thanks, Maya. I'll take you up on that. I hung up and looked out at the busy Chicago streets. The weight that had been crushing my chest for years finally began to crack. This time, I wasn't just getting my money back. I was going to make every person who hurt us pay a heavy price. The counterattack had just begun. Sloan and Justin's retaliation came faster than I expected. Desperate people move fast, especially when they're trying to secure a payout. That afternoon, my phone was bombarded with notifications. Justin had posted a photo of himself in a hospital bed with an 4-drip. The caption read, "A friend of many years turns his back on me for money. My heart breaks for a sweet girl who gave 3 years of her life only to be kicked out with nothing." Some people have no soul. Common friends were liking and commenting like crazy. What happened? Who screwed you over, Justin? Is it Caleb? I heard they're divorcing. You never really know a guy. He seems so nice. Sloan wasn't idle either. She was playing the victim in every group chat we shared. She claimed I was abusive, that I was cheating, and that I was forcing her into an unfair settlement to make room for my mistress. She even posted photos of some fake bruises. For a moment, I was the public enemy. In the break room at work, colleagues looked at me with disgust and whispered. I never would have guessed Caleb was that kind of guy. Typical tech bro. Gets a little money and turns into a monster. Someone even stuck a scumbag post-it note on my monitor. I looked at all of it with total indifference. I almost wanted to laugh. This kind of low-tier character assassination only works on people who don't have the facts. The higher they climbed on their soapbox, the harder they'd fall. I didn't rush to defend myself. Instead, I sat at my laptop and organized my evidence. Bank transfers, chat screenshots, recordings. I even had a transcript of Justin's lone confession. I compiled it all into a PDF titled The Truth. Then I contacted the lawyer Maya recommended. An hour later, a formal cease and desist with a firm's red seal was in my inbox. It was simple, a demand for the $185,000 debt from the Van Cess and a defamation warning for Justin. I posted the lawyer's letter along with the Truth PDF directly into our college alumni group and the company-wide Slack channel. My message: I didn't want to make my private life public, but since some people insist on lying, I'll let the evidence speak. This is in the hands of my lawyers now. Stop the rumors or join the lawsuit. The groups exploded. People who were just siding with Justin went silent the moment they opened that PDF. The tide turned like a hurricane. Holy crap, $185,000? They treated Caleb like a walking ATM. These transfer records are insane. He even paid for the brothers' gambling debts. That recording of Justin is disgusting. He was skimming off the top and trying to move in on his friend's wife. Where are all the people who were trashing Caleb 10 minutes ago? Step up. Colleagues who had been whispering now looked at me with sympathy and a bit of awe. Nobody wants to mess with a guy who keeps receipts like that. Justin went radio silent in the groups, but my private DMs were a different story. Justin, Caleb, you're insane. You're trying to ruin me. Justin, delete that. We're in the same industry. You're killing my reputation. Justin, I'm warning you, don't push me. I replied with one word. Try me. Soon, HR called me in. I laid the evidence out on the table. The HR director looked through it, his face grim. He patted my shoulder. Caleb, your private life is yours, but Justin Harris using company-related projects to take kickbacks? We have zero tolerance for that. We're launching an internal audit. That was exactly what I wanted. Reputation is a double-edged sword. Since they wanted to use it to kill me, they shouldn't complain when I use it to gut them. That night, I got a text from Maya. Caleb, that was amazing. Sloane's friends are all DMing me, asking if it's true. Ha ha ha. They're all terrified she's going to ask them for money now. They're ghosting her faster than a bad date. I looked at the screen and finally let out a real smile. Real friends show up when you're down. Fake circles burn to ash at the first sign of a financial fire. Sloane, Justin, we're just getting started. The best part hasn't even happened yet. The failure of their social media campaign was the first domino to fall. Over the next few days, life for the Van Cess became a nightmare. The lawyers' letters weren't just for show. The court summons actually arrived. My application to freeze their assets was approved. Kyle's beat-up BMW, which he used to act like a big shot, was towed. Martha's pension account was flagged. Even Sloane's designer bags were restricted from resale. The family was in a total panic. To them, being broke was worse than being dead. They started calling Justin frantically. I heard from a friend at the carrier that Sloane called him over 50 times in one day. His pickup rate? 0. Justin was drowning. The company audit was a disaster for him. He had dozens of discrepancies he couldn't explain. He was suspended pending an investigation and was looking at potential criminal charges for embezzlement. He didn't have the time or the money to deal with Sloane's mess. Their true love had evaporated under the weight of a few legal documents. But I didn't expect Sloane to come crawling back. I was leaving the office when she cornered me in the parking garage. She looked terrible, haggard, messy hair, deep bags under her eyes. She was wearing an old trench coat I'd bought her years ago when we first started dating. I guess the designer stuff had already been pawned. Caleb, she said, her voice raspy and desperate. Can we talk? I paused at my car door and looked at her. Talk about what? The progress on your repayment. Sloane bit her lip, tears welling up on cue. Does it have to be like this? We used to be so good together. Justin is a monster. He lied to me. He said he'd help pay the debt, and now he won't even answer his phone. I realize now that you're the only one who ever truly loved me. She stepped forward, reaching for my sleeve. Caleb, I was wrong. Let's not divorce. Let's start over, okay? I'll change, I swear. I'll be a good wife. Looking at her, I didn't feel a spark of pity. I felt disgusted. This was her love. When I had money, I was an ATM. When she was in trouble, I was a harbor. Now that the trash can she'd jumped into was full, she wanted to come back to the recycling bin. I pulled my arm away. Start over. I laughed. Sloane, is there water where your brain should be? Do you really think you can cry, say sorry, and I'll just take you back like a grateful puppy? Dream on. Sloane froze, her tears hanging on her lashes. You, how can you be so cold? Cold. I stepped closer, my eyes burning. When you took my life savings to pay for your brother's gambling, were you thinking about me? When you were in Justin's bed while I was working double shifts, were you thinking about me? You want to talk about love now? It's too late. Go tell Justin that hiding won't help him. And tell your family to start selling their organs if they have to, because I want every cent back. If $1 is missing, Kyle goes to prison. I got into my car and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw Sloane collapse onto the pavement, her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. She looked like a stray dog, but I knew she wasn't crying for me. She was crying because she'd run out of exits. She brought this on herself. As I drove out of the garage and into the city lights, I turned on the radio and blasted some high-energy rock. I never felt so light. The suffocating feeling of being a host for those parasites was finally gone. The thrill of revenge was 1,000 times better than the grace I'd practiced in my last life. The day before the hearing, the Van Cess were clearly at the end of their rope. I didn't think they'd have the guts for one last pity play, but they proved me wrong. This time, it wasn't just Sloane. It was the whole circus. On my way out of work, they blocked the entrance to the building. Martha was pushing Richard in a wheelchair. Lord knows where they got it. He'd been fine the day before. Kyle was trailing behind them, looking ashamed, holding a Tupperware container. Sloane was in the front, holding a thermos. The scene was so dramatic that people leaving the office were stopping to stare. "Caleb, my dear son." Martha tried to drop to her knees, but I stepped back quickly. "I'm begging you. Please have mercy. Your father is so sick from the stress, he can't even speak." Richard obliged by drooping his mouth and making some faint ugh noises. It was some of the worst acting I'd ever seen. Sloane stepped forward and opened the thermos. The smell of chicken soup wafted out. "Caleb, I made your favorite soup. I spent all afternoon on it. I know I was selfish, but please, think of my parents' health. Drop the suit. We'll pay you back in installments. Just don't take the house." People around us started whispering. It's hard to look like the good guy when you're bullying a family with a sick old man. I looked at that soup and felt like gagging. In my last life, when I was hospitalized with a bleeding ulcer and begged for a hot meal, she said she was too busy. Then she'd go make a gourmet bento box for Justin. I didn't take the thermos. I took out a handkerchief and slowly wiped my hands. "Nice show. Keep going." I looked around at the crowd. "Everyone, take a good look. This is what happens when you try to hold people accountable for their debts. When they want the money, they're your best friend. When it's time to pay, they bring out the wheelchair." "Hey, Richard." I pointed at the man in the chair. "I saw you smoking on the corner 10 minutes ago, walking just fine. How'd you get paralyzed so fast?" Richard's face turned bright red, and he instinctively tucked his hand back into his lap to hide his cigarettes. The crowd started laughing. The lie was so thin it was embarrassing. I turned to Sloane. "And the soup." I grabbed the thermos and tipped it over. The soup splashed onto the pavement, steaming in the cold air. "Don't ever try to feed me again. When you were making this, you weren't thinking of me. You were thinking of how to save your skin. You're pathetic." Sloane screamed, looking at the wasted soup, then glared at me with pure hatred. "Caleb, you prick. We're begging you. What more do you want?" The mask was off. This was the real Sloane. "What do I want?" I leaned in, whispering so only she could hear. "I want to watch your family fall from the sky and land in the mud. I want to watch you all turn on each other for a crust of bread, just like you did to me in my last life." Sloane shivered, looking at me with terror. "Last life? You're crazy." I stood up straight. "See you in court tomorrow. Don't be late." I walked back into the building without looking back. Behind me, Martha was cursing and Sloane was wailing, but it was music to my ears. This was their final struggle. Tomorrow, the law would finish what I started. The courtroom was cold and solemn. In the defendant's box, the Van Cess looked like wilted vegetables. Even Justin was there, subpoenaed as a witness. He was wearing a cheap, ill-fitting suit, looking 10 years older than me. When he saw me, his eyes were full of spite, but mostly fear. The trial was smoother than I'd hoped. My lawyer was an absolute shark. Evidence was projected on the big screens. Bank statements, recordings, text logs, even screenshots of Kyle at the casino, which I'd paid a private investigator to find. The chain of evidence was airtight. The Vance's lawyer was a young guy, fresh out of school, probably the only one they could afford. Facing the mountain of evidence, he was sweating and stuttering. "Your Honor," while there were transfers. These were internal family gifts, not loans. The judge looked like she wasn't buying a word of it. When it was Justin's turn to testify, he tried to lie. I didn't know it was a loan. Caleb gave it to me voluntarily." My lawyer hit play on the recording. "Don't worry, Caleb, this is just a loan." The judge slammed her gavel, warning him about the penalties for perjury. Justin's legs gave out, and he nearly collapsed. "I'll tell the truth. I'll tell the truth. Sloane told me to say that. She said if I didn't admit it, Caleb couldn't win. It wasn't my idea." The room descended into chaos as Sloane stood up and started screaming at Justin. "You coward. It was your plan. You said Caleb was a sucker and we'd bleed him dry before we left town. Order. Order in the court." I sat in the plaintiff's seat, watching them tear each other apart like a spectator at a movie. I'd waited 2 lifetimes for this. Without the veneer of love and family, they were just ugly, desperate people. The verdict was final. The court ruled that the $185,000 was indeed a series of loans. Sloan and Kyle were ordered to pay back the principal plus interest within 30 days. The judge rejected the gift defense entirely. Furthermore, because Sloan had diverted marital assets during the marriage, she was found to be the at-fault party in the divorce, meaning she got almost nothing in the property division. They even had to pay my legal fees. When the verdict was read, Martha fainted for real this time. Richard slumped in his wheelchair, his hands shaking. Kyle looked like a ghost, whispering, "It's over. It's all over." Sloan stared at me, her eyes empty, like her soul had been sucked out. I felt nothing. I packed my files and stood up. As I passed Justin, he grabbed the hem of my pants. "Caleb, bro, I messed up. Please talk to the company. If I go to jail, I'm ruined." I looked down at the hand that used to slap me on the back and kicked it away. "You made your bed, Justin. Hope you find some brothers in prison." I stepped out of the courthouse into the bright, blinding Chicago sun. The air felt incredibly fresh. Maya was waiting for me at the bottom of the steps with a bouquet of sunflowers. "Caleb, we won." She hugged me, beaming. "Yeah," I said, patting her back. "We won." The mountain that had crushed me for 2 lives was finally dust. For the first time, I felt truly alive. A judgment is just the first step. Getting money from a parasite requires force. I didn't give them a chance to stall. The day after the judgment, I filed for a writ of execution. The court seized the Van Cess family home, the only thing they had left. It was in a decent neighborhood. Selling it would cover the $185,000 plus interest. It meant they were going to be homeless. At the same time, Justin's karma arrived. The company audit was completed. Not only had he taken kickbacks, but he'd also leaked proprietary data to competitors. The company called the cops. The day Justin was led out of his cubicle in handcuffs, the whole office watched. I heard he was screaming my name, but nobody cared. Even his party friends had blocked him by then. In the Chicago tech scene, he was radioactive. I heard the fallout. The Van Cess were desperately trying to borrow money to keep the house. But after the Truth PDF went viral, no one would touch them. They started fighting amongst themselves. Apparently, Kyle tried to steal Sloane's last few pieces of jewelry to sell, and he beat her when she resisted. Martha defended her son, calling Sloane a curse who brought the family down. Sloane went to the police station to see Justin, but she was arrested for disorderly conduct after making a scene. Their lives were a joke. I listened to the updates as if they were stories about strangers. My own life was getting back on track. I got a promotion, a raise, and my projects were thriving. I picked up an old hobby, woodworking. I took a class, and there was something incredibly peaceful about turning rough wood into something beautiful. It was a luxury of focus I'd never had. One day, Maya sent me a photo. It was the Van Cess loading their belongings into a beat-up U-Haul. The house had been sold at auction, and the proceeds covered their debt to me. The leftovers were probably only enough to rent a basement apartment. "Maya, bro, does this feel good?" I looked at Martha's slumped back and Sloane's numb expression. I texted back one word: incredible. It really was. Seeing bad people get what they deserve is better than winning the lottery. The day the funds cleared into my account, I took Maya out for a celebratory dinner. It was at that restaurant that I ran into Justin's ex-girlfriend, the one he'd dumped for Sloane. She came over with a glass of wine. "Caleb, well done," she said. "When he left me for Sloane, I knew this day would come. Thank you for doing what I couldn't." We clinked glasses. When you're a good person, the world helps you. When you're trash, karma waits for you at every turn. Justin's prison sentence and the Van Cess bankruptcy were seeds they had planted themselves. I was just the gardener who came a harvest. The Van Cess eventually disappeared to the fringes of the city, but I still heard bits and pieces. Bad news travels fast. Kyle, unable to pay back some high-interest loans he'd taken out privately, got his leg broken and was now permanently crippled. He spent his days begging near the transit stations, hiding whenever he saw a man in a suit. Martha had a stroke from the stress and was partially paralyzed in a low-income care facility, spending her days yelling at nurses. Richard, once the proud patriarch, was now seen picking through discarded produce at the market to save a few dollars. And Sloane. She went from being a high-level project manager to a retail clerk at a discount mall. I heard she'd been fired several times for her attitude. One weekend, I went to the mall to buy a birthday gift for Maya. In a fast fashion outlet, I saw Sloane folding clothes. She was painfully thin. She was in a cheap uniform, her hair dry, yellowish mess tied in a limp ponytail. The arrogance in her eyes was gone, replaced by exhaustion. A customer was berating her because a shirt was the wrong size. "Is this your first day?" How hard is it to find a medium? Sloane kept her head down, bowing and apologizing. I'm so sorry. I'll find it right now. She looked nothing like the woman I'd married. I stood a few yards away, watching silently. I didn't go over to mock her, nor did I hide. She was just a stranger. Sloane sensed someone watching and looked up. Our eyes met. She froze, and the shirt she was holding dropped to the floor. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say my name, but no sound came out. I saw the regret, the shame, and the panic of being seen like this. She quickly knelt to pick up the shirt, trying to hide her face. Her shoulders were shaking. I didn't stay. I turned and walked to another department. Her life was no longer my concern. I had my money, and I had my dignity. She would spend the rest of her life in the shadow of what she'd lost. That was the ultimate punishment, remembering the luxury while living in the dirt. I bought Maya a necklace. It was expensive and beautiful. I didn't even blink when I swiped my card. This was the life I was supposed to have, the ability to love myself and my family. The trash had been swept away. With the Vance family gone, my savings grew rapidly. My woodworking skills were actually getting quite good. I'd even made a rocking chair for my balcony. It was a gift for my future self. At the woodworking studio, I met Riley Bennett. She was an illustrator with bright eyes and hands that were always stained with ink or paint. I first noticed her when she was struggling to sand a piece of stubborn mahogany. She was covered in sawdust, but smiling like a kid. Need a hand? I offered her some higher grit sandpaper. She looked up, her eyes sparkling. Thanks. This one is as stubborn as I am. At that moment, I felt the ice around my heart finally melt. We started hanging out, discussing wood grain, hitting up flea markets for materials. When I worked late, she'd send me a funny doodle with the caption hanging there, Corporate Warrior. When she was stuck on a project, I'd take her for a walk along the lake. There were no games, no demands, just sharing a life. Maya met Riley once and was immediately sold. Caleb, she's the one. Clear eyes, warm smile. She's perfect for you. She's the anti-Sloane. I laughed and swatted her head. We're just friends, Maya. Yeah, okay. We'll see. She was right. One Sunday afternoon, we were in the studio. The sun was streaming through the windows, dust motes dancing in the light. Riley was focused on painting a small wooden horse. I looked at her profile and felt a spark I hadn't felt in years. Riley, yeah. She turned, a smudge of red paint on her nose. She looked like a curious fawn. When we're done here, let's grab dinner. Sure. What are we having? You pick. She smiled, her eyes crinkling. Tacos. The spicy kind that make your eyes water. Deal. I felt truly alive again. Not because of revenge, but because of this simple, warm moment. I reached out and gently wiped the paint off her nose. She blushed. The air smelled of cedar and possibilities. This was how life was supposed to be. The nightmare of my past marriage was like old skin. I'd shed it, and the new skin underneath was tougher and more sensitive to the warmth. The end of the story was, as always, a bit dramatic. On the weekend, Riley and I officially started dating. We ran into Sloane. It was the first snow of the winter. Riley was tucked under my arm, holding a hot latte, telling me about a new book she was illustrating. We stopped at a bakery to look at the display. I want that strawberry one. Riley pointed at a cake, teasing me. You got it. I laughed, reaching for the door. Next to us, I heard a heavy thud. I turned. Sloane was standing there, a stack of flyers scattered at her feet. She was wearing a heavy, oversized mascot costume, but she'd taken the head off to breathe. Her face was bright red from the cold, and her hair was matted with sweat. This was her life now, dressed as a cartoon character in the freezing wind, handing out coupons. She stared at us. She looked at Riley's high-quality wool coat, a gift from me. She saw the way I wrapped my scarf around Riley to keep her warm, a tenderness she'd never valued. Her eyes were a kaleidoscope of shock, jealousy, and total despair. She opened her mouth to speak. I looked at her, but this time, there wasn't even a ripple of emotion in my heart. No hat, no piti. She was just a dead tree by the side of the road. I realized then that I had truly moved on. The most complete revenge isn't hatred. It's when the other person ceases to matter at all. I looked away as if she weren't there. I turned to Riley and said softly, "It's cold out here. Let's go inside." Riley didn't know who the woman was. She just looked at her curiously. That poor girl looks exhausted. Yeah, everyone pays for the choices they make, I said quietly, opening the door. The bell chimed as we stepped into the warmth, leaving the cold wind and that broken figure behind. I didn't look back. Through the glass, I could see Sloane still standing there like an ice sculpture. But it didn't matter. My hand was holding another, warmer hand. The strawberry cake on the table was bright red and sweet. "Caleb, try this. It's amazing." Riley fed me a spoonful. Yeah, I said. It's really sweet. Outside, the snow fell, covering the city and burying the past. My winter was over. My spring had finally arrived. Story complete.